Go right ahead.
All right, thank you very much. Leah, can you shift to the next slide?
Absolutely.
So I think everyone here is familiar with the campus. And so one of the things that the architecture team had to do first was to figure out how to build a brand new classroom building on a functioning school campus. This is a 14 to 16 month project. So it's not like we could just build it in the summer and have you guys come back and have it all be ready. So what they came up with and what works quite well is that two of the buildings will actually need to get removed up front, the multi-purpose building and the two smaller portable classroom buildings off the parking lot will get removed. Those are the buildings shown in red. So that will happen kind of immediately at the start of the project next year, at which point it will allow for construction of the new two-story classroom building in blue, which will be over the existing front drop-off loop and the area where those buildings came out. And so that construction can go on at the same time that the school continues to operate out of all of the existing classroom space in the areas to the north and east of the new build. And then the summer of 2024, the builder would come in and they would demolish the older single-story classroom buildings, the hexagonal classroom buildings. And what will end up at the end is a nice, larger, expanded kind of quad space in between all of the existing buildings and the new two-story building. So, you know, it's a long process, but in the end, great new building and some new space for your kids. Leah, do you want to expand on this at all, or?
Well, I can start talking about the overall design of the project, but I will move to the next slide unless there's anything else you want to talk about here. All right, I'm going to keep going. So this is the site plan. And I think one of the things that we really started with in this process is the idea that, you know, how do we use this project to really enhance school community? And a big part of that is the site. You have these buildings that you've been using for a really long time, and they really need to be replaced. But in addition to the new classroom buildings, can we really make an overall site experience that gives the teachers more opportunities to come up with new activities, that gives the students places to hang out with each other and to meet up with their friends, to do homework, to create that sort of social school community. So the location of the building is like Doug said, it's faces kind of right up against Calaroga Avenue. So as you're coming down Calaroga, the school also has a presence on the street. So there's going to be a big planting strip in this kind of green area here. That's also stormwater management, and there'll be, you know, a lot of new trees and planting. And the school will be a lot more visible from the street than your current campus. And then you come in through the main entry, and as Doug was saying, what is really created is this courtyard space that spans between the Royal Center, the new building, and the existing portables. And all of this is sort of open area for the school's use. And right now, you know, we're showing relocating the garden over to this area. There's sort of picnic tables in the center. And the design of the building, which I'll get into in a little bit, is such that the classrooms actually on this side of the building open up onto that courtyard. So there's a real connection between these outdoor landscape places and the building. So the idea was really to find ways of giving you more. We're obviously, like, budget's always limited, but how can we make the outdoor spaces do double duty so this classes can spill out into that courtyard and really enhance the experience that you guys have on the school campus. So this is a little dollhouse view of the first floor. So just to orient you, Calaroga Avenue is along this end. On one end of the building is a new gymnasium. So this is actually an increase in size from the existing multi-purpose room. It's sized for high school basketball, so a full-size basketball court interior to that. This is the main entry on the other end with the admin sort of office area here. This would be the reception where you would check in if you're coming to visit or coming in late. And then classrooms along both sides. And again, like I mentioned, these classrooms along the courtyard edge open out onto the courtyard. So we have maker space and art space that are really going to be able to use that outdoor space to maybe do some larger or messier or more unusual activities than they're able to do in their current space or that they would do inside. And then moving up to the second floor, there's actually access to the second floor, both from inside the building. This is like a central interior stair and an outside courtyard walkway. So these classrooms on the second floor open up onto the walkway. And again, that's really, an opportunity for as students are moving through the site, they can look down into the courtyard, they can see what's happening. Those classrooms have a view onto the courtyard spaces and really the rest of the campus from this upper story. The second floor is mostly classrooms. The counseling and student support area sort of stacks above the admin area. And then again, classrooms on both ends of the corridor. The gymnasium is a double height space, so that's all open and you actually get some views into the gymnasium. These are like, I don't know, good seats, bad seats, but you can peek into the gymnasium from this upper story classroom area. On both floors, the central area around the stairs is kind of an open flex space. So that's, again, in addition to the courtyard spaces that I've been talking about, there's some flexible spaces on the interior building that can be used for stuff like small group study or breakout spaces for the classrooms that can be used in different ways. So that's here in the center. And then this is an early rendering about what this building might look like. So again, this is two-story building. This faces the courtyard. So this is a view roughly from the middle of the existing courtyard in front of the Royal Center. So this is the entry coming off of Calaroga. The main entry into the admin area is here. That second floor walkway looks out onto the courtyard here. And then this is classrooms with the gym. You can see it's a slightly larger volume because of that big interior space, and it peaks up a little bit from behind. I think there's a really great opportunity for art to be incorporated. So we're showing some spaces for murals at these two locations. And that's something that we are very excited to work with your art classes to develop as we get a little bit closer down the road, since that's, like Doug said, that's like a year, 2 years out. So Scott, do you have anything to add?
I think also one thing to note is that on the site plan, we're creating 2 parking areas. One parking area is for staff at the back of the building. Yeah, if you can go back, that'd be great. And then also a parking area at the front of the building, which is for visitors and accessible parking for the campus. So we're sort of creating 2 different parking areas to accommodate the staff and visitors.
Does anyone have any questions? Maybe, I don't know if I'm jumping into that too soon, but it's a lot of information and a couple of short slides. So if there's anything that you'd like me to explain a little more, that's what we're here for. So
I believe the attendees, I believe they can raise their hand and or put something in the chat or then Q&A. If someone has a question, please raise your hand or in some way indicate that you want to ask a question.
Yeah, they can raise their hand or select the Q&A and enter a question there. It should be at the bottom of the bar.
There's a Q&A there. Can we see the first floor plan again?
right here.
Thank you for our first question. So just to clarify, the main building is not accessible from Calaroga Avenue. Is that correct?
It is mostly correct. I'll go up to the site plan. There's the possibility that when the gym is in use for community events, there is actually an accessible pathway directly from Calaroga. So on those sort of basketball game nights or other school events, these doors can be opened up and managed by the school, so you can come in directly from Calaroga. There'll be exit only during school hours, so they'll be locked at other times. The main entrance will be here on the school side.
I have another question in the chat. It is this construction happening in the summer, and also what year?
It is going to happen, so it's starting in one summer, and it will extend through that summer, through the following school year, and then through the next summer. And it'll start in the summer or the spring, really, of 2023, and it will be completed after the summer of 2024. So about a year from now is when it will start. A year and a little bit from now is when it'll start.
And Leah, did we have like that timeline on the second slide?
Yeah, that's a good point.
That might be helpful.
There you go.
Doug, if you don't mind, would you review that timeline again really briefly?
Sure.
Just because the recording didn't start at the very beginning.
Not a problem. Yeah, so, you know, we're a long ways into a very lengthy process. And so the team was selected back in 2020, and then 2020 to 21 went through and kind of worked through a bunch of different options and selected, leadership selected their preferred option for the new building, which is what you're seeing today. And then the construction drawings were completed between April and July of 21. The state then reviewed those drawings between August of 2021, and then they've recently, last month, provided their approval so that those drawings can go out and they're ready for construction. They can be built. That kicks off a lengthy review process by the state to give the final approval of the funding for the project, with culminating with a check being issued in the summer of 2023. It's approximately a 14 to 16 month construction project for something like this. It's a complicated, complex build, and the construction will start in the spring of next year, spring of 2023, and it will finish at the end of the summer of 2024, a little over a year later.
Thank you.
Thank you. There was also an additional question regarding the missing classrooms, like the NPR during the construction year. It was more of, what is the plan for those missing rooms?
Yeah, so I think, you know, there's the school leadership will have to discuss it. I know back when Ernest was here, Ernest was talking through the planning. There will be two fewer classrooms during that year. And the lunch service will have to be held somewhere temporarily, set with some sort of temporary table set up. And that, you know, we'd be happy to obviously work with the administration to kind of figure out the plan before the start of construction next year. But there, you know, the team came up with the way to minimize impacts to the school while constructing this new building. And, you know, originally there was potentially going to be a reduction in classrooms of about 5, and they got it down to reducing it by 2, which is great. And the drop off and pickup, I'm seeing that as well. Drop off and pickup will change. That drop off loop is going to go away for that year, and the drop off is going to have to be on the street for that year.
There was an additional question about, is the construction going to interrupt with the students getting to classes and taking classrooms away?
Yes, so the builder will do their best to minimize any impacts on the kids, and it is, you know, it'll be a separate fenced area, so there won't be kind of direct interactions between the kids and the contractors. There will be some construction noise that's unavoidable, but the contractor will be coordinating with the staff on site and trying to become aware of testing times and days and doing their best to to minimize any sort of interruptions. They're also able to do a lot of the heavier work over the summers so that during the school year, it's again trying to reduce that. There are 2 classrooms, the 2 portable classrooms directly off the parking lot that are going away for that year.
I'm thinking, Leah, is there, can you show that layout? Right, yeah.
So, so during construction, I mean, this dotted line is roughly going to be a construction fence. So there will be no access. I mean, there's going to be a gated access for trucks, obviously, but the students will not be able to, students and parents, teachers will not have access into this area. And that's obviously a safety concern. So the drop off, there'll still be pedestrian access through between the construction fence and this building, and the drop off, like Doug said, will most likely be along the street, but that's still being worked out with the school leadership. There was a question about the style of the buildings, which I probably don't have a satisfying answer for you, but I wanted to respond since I did see it in the chat. So I'm not sure what the defining factor is for old school style, but I will say that the sort of, you know, we're operating within some amount of constraints of budget and space, and our priorities for the design, we're trying to keep the classrooms really open and flexible and give them as pretty much as much window as possible. So all of the classrooms, they're pretty simple. They have really big windows on either side, either into the courtyard or out onto Calaroga. And they're sort of open, open spaces with pretty high ceilings, I think 10 feet, but I don't quote me on that off the top of my head. It might be 9'8" or something odd like that. And so the construction type, it is tilt up concrete. And so that's also going to let us, the rendering that I showed doesn't have colors on it yet. It's still preliminary, but that's going to let us sort of work again with maybe the art department and with the school community to really make it unique to Leadership Public Schools. And there's a lot of opportunity for kind of color and identity to be factored into that. I don't know if that answers your concern, but that gives you a sense of what we were working with when we were trying to put these plans together.
Thank you. There was one more question. Is there a plan for teacher parking during the construction year?
That is not something that has been completed yet, and the school team will be working to create that over the next probably 6 months.
So Chris, if after this presentation, someone has a question about this great project, who should they contact?
Oh, if they have any additional questions, they can email me at my email address. I don't think we posted or put that up
You can
on
put
here.
it in the chat.
Put in the chat real fast.
2 R's and 2 L's.
Yes.
All right, confirm I spelled that correctly, please.
That is correct.
Awesome. Yes, so Chris Harrell, he's the Director of Student Services and also Facilities, I believe. Is that your?
Yes.
Awesome. Good deal.
Yes, please email me any additional questions. I can always present that to the team that is here today. And I think we have probably 1 or 2 more minutes. If you have any additional questions right now, we'll try to answer 1 or 2 of them before we end our meeting.
All right, well, thank you for coming and sharing your presentation with us. Do you want to stop sharing so we can see your faces one last time? There you are. Hello. So thank you very much for sharing your presentation, and thank you to the families, teachers and students who attended tonight. You have my email address, cjordanswan@lps.org. If you have any questions for me, and then you also have Chris Harrell's email in the chat. So thank you again, everyone, and we'll just say good night.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everyone. Thank you to our panelists as well. And good night.